Okay, so let's start. We already know how to manipulate cells and stuff like that. Now the question is, how do we store it? Or in other words, for example, we could create whole new Excel files as well. So let's start with that, so that we have something to fool around with, a blank Excel file where we can do more stuff, and then we just save it and then we can download it and look if our changes and fooling around what that it actually affected an actual Excel file. Okay. So first of all, we need to generate a blank new workbook with which we then can do whatever we want without distorting, changing, deleting, manipulating an actual Excel file which could have valuable data. So we can do nothing wrong here. We can fool around and play around as much as we want. It's actually in a practical application you would work and would try something with OpenPyXL in your work later on. It's always good to have such a play space, fooling around space. So Colab is one example where you can fool around with Python and making a workbook with which you can test out if everything works before you apply it on actual data, and in the end may disrupt data which you didn't want to. It's always better to make that on a playing field at the beginning. So that's what we do here. So we need our new workbook, which we call PB for playbook, because it's not a workbook anymore. We play with it, so it's a playbook. And therefore we need OpenPyXL again. And from that we need a function which will make us a new workbook. And this function is just called workbook, brackets open, brackets closed. And all that function does is it gives us back a new workbook, and we can look if that worked. Exactly, we have now an object which holds a workbook in the variable p for playbook. Great, first step done. We now have a workbook. And the problem is we now need to have access as before as well to the worksheet we work with then, which we manipulate. Okay, so we need a sheet which we call PS for play sheet, and this play sheet will be from the playbook the active worksheet, which is just called .active, and if we type that, we just get a current active worksheet, whatever that is, and store it in PS. Great. We can print this as well, so we're sure that it worked, but there was no error, so it should have been working. Exactly, we have now a sheet, and then we could save that. And this is done by saving not a sheet, but the whole workbook. We have access to the sheet, which we then manipulate, and the manipulations are as well in the workbook. If we want to save, we won't have to save the workbook, not the sheet. That's important. So what we do now is we type in PB for our playbook and type in save, not Dave, for saving. And now we need to give it a name. So let's call that the playbook.xlsx file. Save. Did it work? That's the big question. As we can see, there's no new file in my data, but that's because we need to refresh the page, because only if we hit refresh we see our changes. We hit refresh, and now there's a Plexbook because I wrote that wrong, so we do that again. We hit refresh, and now there's playbook. We now click on this dot, click download. Once we do that, we should download it, and now we can open the file. And as you can see in a second, we successfully saved a new Excel file with one sheet default sheet, as we seen in our prints, called playbook. Playbook 6 in my case, because I already have a couple of them in the downloads folder. For you, it should be just playbook. So saving works. We see us again after you have done the exercise. So I want you now, because we learned all of that already, that you manipulate the cells, okay? So I want you to write something in those cells, because let's say the playbook will be our blank Excel file where we want to store row by row from the other Excel files the data in. And we already know in the first columns there is a date factor. I'm showing you again. So the idea now is, okay, just to be clear, in playbook, we want to load this Excel file, then we want to load the next Excel file, and so on. We merge them all together in playbook. And we know we have 3 columns each. And in the first column, there are only dates, so when there was a transaction. In the second column, we always have the product, which product is it? And the third column is always how much we sold. So what then playbook needs is a heading one time where the first column gets the heading date, the second column gets the heading product, the third column gets the heading amount sold. And I want you to manipulate the active sheet, so PS, in a way that column A in the first line gets the value date, column B, first line, gets the value product, column C, first line, gets the value amount sold. Then save it and check if playbook, which you downloaded, will now have those 3 headings. Have fun, good luck. The solution will be in the next video.